Hi, everybody. I'm Sherry Falco here today on the Grace Chronicles. I just want to welcome all of you, and we have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Deb, and she's coming to us from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And her story is a story about learning to be courageous. And I think all of us can use that. So I'm so glad you tuned in today. Welcome, Deb. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you, Sherry. It's good to be here.
So I'm just curious, do you think that you struggled, like before we get into your story, did you struggle like with fear or something, or how did this story begin?
Oh, I have struggled with fear my whole life. Um, I I was always afraid of what people would think of me.
Mm,
I was a people pleaser. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to do the right thing. Um, and it's not realistic to think that you can always do the right thing. It's not realistic to think everybody's going to like you. So there were a lot of disappointments, there were a lot of ups and downs, and I just lived in constant fear of being wrong.
mm. And how did you I'm just curious because if you're trying to please people all the time, like do you have any joy or happiness or because people can be really fickle. So
No, it was a series of disappointments. It was like being on a teeter-totter. And as soon as you started to feel joy, something would happen and it would send me back into the valley. So there was no peace, there was no lasting joy. It was like always being off balance.
But so you're struggling with fear, right? So at what point is there like this? You said that there were obstacles, that this whole thing with Jesus, came about because you were facing certain obstacles. Can you share
Yeah.
some of that with us?
So it really took until later in life that I overcame the fear. And it started with learning that you can't ever please people. Someone will always criticize. It doesn't matter what you do, how you do it. Someone is going to be critical. So stop. I learned that I had to stop looking to people for approval and
So I think, oh,
stop.
wait a minute. So wait a minute, because I think a lot of us have this, right? And hey,
Okay,
we're on social media.
right.
This is on, and social media is really a place where people feel free to take pot shots for whatever reason. So
Yeah, I've been on
how
the receiving end of some of those pot shots. Yeah,
so
yeah.
how did you learn this? Just for people who are struggling.
It was a long journey. I talked to God. I kept talking to God over the years, and literally, I made so many mistakes. I went down the wrong path so many times. I got to about age 38, and I
Mm.
realized here I am again in this place I don't want to be, in trouble, not happy, not content. And what's the common denominator? It was me.
Mm.
I took me to every circumstance that I was in. So, what was it about me that needed to change? And honestly, that's when I really connected with God at a deeper level and started realizing that there are universal laws, that it doesn't matter if I ignore them, I still become subject to them. And the one that is going to make the most sense to everybody is the law of the harvest. We reap what we sow. If we plant kindness, kindness will come back to us. If we plant anger and discord, that's what's going to come back to us. It's a simple, it's, look at farming. If you plant corn seed, you're going to grow corn. You can't plant corn and expect to get beets instead. You're going to get back what you plant.
All right, but I'm trying to understand so how this connects with your people pleasing. So what exactly were you planting that was coming back?
I was planting dishonesty. I was doing what I thought you wanted me to do. I was being who I thought you wanted me to be, not being myself,
I
not
see.
being truthful because I was afraid you would judge me. But what happened instead was I gave you a false front and you judged me anyway. I tried to manipulate to get back what I wanted, and that manipulation burned me.
Wow, that's very interesting. I never even thought about it that way. So how did you, okay, so you realize that this principle is operating
Yeah.
in your life. I heard somebody once say that God's laws operate whether you believe in them or not. So this
Yeah.
is this is yeah. Yeah.
It's one of those. Yeah.
So
Yep.
how did you, because that there's the courage aspect, I think, right? Is how, because in order to be ourselves, right, who we really are, first of all, we have to
Yeah.
understand who we are. And
Right.
then you have to take the risk that people will not like the real you. So how did that
Right.
happen for you?
It happened gradually and incrementally as I took calculated risks to be myself without putting weight on how someone might respond to me. I was so caught up in my head so many times where I would modify what I did before I did it because I thought, well, somebody's going to think this, so I can't do that. And so I have to do this other. And I would just be inside my brain.
Yeah.
And it's ways too stressful. So when I just said, this is who I am a person who loves deeply, quickly, and gives all, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't withhold that because I'm afraid someone isn't going to appreciate it or they're not going to take it the right way. I need to just show up and be that way and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So it took courage to be myself even when I was afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's doing things in spite of being afraid.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do that, we can reap the reward. And, sometimes people didn't want to connect, and that was okay. Sometimes I gave and didn't get anything in return, and I was okay with that. Other times I gave first, and other people then felt free to reciprocate. And what I got back was what the Bible talks about 30, 60, or 100-fold. I would get back so much more because I took the risk first. I would receive more than I felt like I had given.
Well, there are two things. First of all, I also have heard somebody say before that we feel like when we love, for example, right, which requires that we're real and that we're vulnerable, um, we expect to get back love from that person that we chose to love.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody saying that the principle in the kingdom, right, in God's world that God has
Yeah.
set up is if you don't receive it back from that person, the reaping comes anyway, so you will get it from somewhere else. So that's one thing that might help us be more vulnerable and courageous is if we realize,
Yeah.
listen, we're free to not receive from that particular person, but it will come back in some way. Do you agree with that?
I do. And I think that is tied to I give not to get.
Mm,
I give because I choose to give. And when I do receive in return, it's bonus.
yeah. So did God, Jesus helping you with all this? I mean, what was his role in this as you were doing this?
His role was I would go to him with my fear and
Mm,
say, help, help. I want to be authentic. Help me.
yeah.
And I'll tell you, at first, it was with knees trembling,
Mm,
shaking all over. And what happened was, as I took steps to be brave, to be authentic, it got easier and easier and easier. Now, I will say, it is never easy when you pour out and you give, even not expecting in return. There are still times when it isn't just that someone walks away, it's that they are nasty
mm,
in return. That's never easy. That is never something we want to experience. And that's where God helps too. Because when I think about the life of Jesus, not everybody liked Jesus. He took a
mm,
lot of opposition. I mean, even to the point of being killed. So he knows anything that I would go through, he's already been through. So he understands.
yeah.
And there's great comfort for me in knowing he gets it.
Yeah. So it's not about being perfect. It's literally about, you know.
Oh boy, there's that word. So I am a recovering perfectionist.
Ah,
Uh-huh. Yeah, when you have to be all things to all people, you have to be perfect. That's impossible. It's unrealistic. It's fake.
so
No.
you are actually in sales, correct?
Yes, that's right.
What do you sell? Can you tell us what you
Well,
sell?
at this point, actually, for the past 15 years, I've been helping other people improve their sales skills. So I'm a sales coach.
Okay. Because you would think, right, that this profession in particular would require me to be anything you want me to be in order to close that sale.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. There are a lot of misconceptions about what it takes to be good at sales.
Okay.
And that's because there are a lot of really bad salespeople out there
Mm,
modeling the wrong behaviors.
okay.
So, first thing I'll say is sales is not a convincing process. I
Okay.
can't convince anybody of anything. What I can do is get to know that person well enough to help them decide if what I have to sell is beneficial to them or not. And if it's not, that's okay.
Okay, that's a completely different viewpoint because again, that's relational.
Right.
That's not transactional. That's
Correct.
relational.
hmm When
So,
when you put the person first and
mm,
their needs, wants, and desires, and you fully understand to within the context of what it is that you're conversing about, when you understand their situation well enough, you're in a position to say, you know what I have isn't really what you need based on what you've shared with me. Or we keep talking because there is synergy. And then all I'm doing is saying, what else do you need to know to make a good decision?
Mm.
And I make sure you feel comfortable, that you know to the best of your ability before the purchase, you know that you're making a good decision. And that's when I say, okay, I'll let you purchase. It is.
Yeah. So, well, this time of year, right? It's Christmas time, it's holiday season,
Mhm.
and I'm putting you on the spot.
Thanks for the
But
warning.
but you agreed to come. So,
That's right.
and we're all looking at our families. Now, I guess maybe there's somebody out there that has a perfect family. I do not. And I don't personally know anyone who has one.
No.
But I'm hearing what you're saying. And I think the principles that, and I want you to share some of these principles in addition to how to be courageous, right? And authentic. How would we, those of us with imperfect families, what could we use? What principles could we use to help bring some healing to our own families during this season?
Well, I'm actually going to talk about a skill and back my way into the principles.
Perfect.
The skill is listening.
Mm.
Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to be understood. And most of us do not feel like anybody's listening. Everyone's so busy with their own agenda, their, yeah, themselves, what they think is right, and the natural automatic pilot action is to assume everyone thinks the way we do. And so we impose without even realizing, we impose what we think on others.
Mm.
So to take it the 180-degree opposite direction, what if we asked a question and just listened?
Mm.
What if we just sat down and listened without ever needing to talk, without having to interject? Just listen. And when I have practiced this early on, trust me, I had to practice because it didn't come naturally. As I practiced, I learned things about people that I never would have known. And I augment the listening with questions like, tell me your story. Tell me your perspective on such and such.
Mm.
Or what was your experience of XYZ? And then just sit back and let the person talk. I love to do it with older people, especially those who are starting to lose their faculties, because the long term memory is intact. And what they always go to are stories from the past that helped form them as individuals. And it, oh my gosh, the joy that comes to their face because they're able to tell the story. Someone is actually interested in hearing it. And the joy that I receive by understanding that person through that story. It's a thing of beauty.
Do you know what? I just had somebody on, and his definition, I thought this was really interesting. That sort of plays to what you're saying is that according to brain science, right? That joy is actually what I see in your face that says you're happy that I'm here.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And so, how many of us feel that? Like when you're having a conversation, how many conversations do you have when the person's like, You're telling them something that's really important to you, and they're going like this. And you're
Mhm.
thinking, you don't care what I'm saying. Why am I even talking?
Yes, the world is filled with distractions.
Yeah,
So, to help with the listening, eye contact,
yeah.
very important. And acknowledgments and body language that says, yeah, I hear you, nods, or even asking clarifying questions or tell me more about this. It, it's a gift to the person.
And just think how much we need that in our society. I mean, I know you're in sales, but sales as it sounds like you're actually just building bridges and actually helping people. So what if we just actually listen to each other instead of assuming?
Why
And
not? I'll tell you what, it it is a simple but profound adjustment that anybody and everybody can do. We are all capable of focusing to listen. It takes an awareness and it takes intentionality. Try it.
I
Try
mean,
it. You'll like it. Right.
isn't that what Jesus did though? That's why he had such profound responses
Yes.
to what even the people he was that were trying to trip him up
Yeah.
because he really listened to what they were saying.
It's listening with the intent of understanding,
Mm.
not with the intent to argue, not with the intent to pick apart, not with the intent to ask a question, just listening in order to understand. And then your questions will flow out of trying to understand better instead of trying to one up or in any way shut down or me too, and turning the attention to yourself instead of leaving it on that person.
So this is the this is the whatever the skill that you said led to some principles that you also discovered. So can you segue into those?
So I just said the one, it's we want to seek first to understand.
Mm.
And when we do that, it makes other people open to understanding us.
Okay.
So another principle is take the one down position to elevate the other person first. Because in doing so, and this comes back to what we said at the beginning, we may not receive from that person, but we will receive. We will reap the benefit of that giving, that gift of listening to that person. It will come back to us. The law of the harvest.
Do you know what? It's not exactly on that, but as you're speaking, I just keep thinking of one of my favorite stories in the Bible is Jesus with the woman at the well.
Mm, yeah.
In our world, it makes no sense. It literally makes no sense. He has 3 years and he goes out of his way to be by himself with this one woman, just to be with her, right? And listen to her questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that isn't that what we're called to do? Is just be with and forget about the numbers. We're too
Right.
much about numbers because how are we going to listen in all these numbers? But how her life is completely transformed, even when she's not getting it, right? He's trying to tell her something and
Yeah.
she's not getting it, but
Mm-hmm.
he just sits right there with her until her life is completely changed. And then she's the light to the whole community.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's kind of what you're describing. Only, am I correct, or is that?
So that is the law of the harvest, in that when he took the time with the one,
Yeah.
a multitude received the benefit. because of that time spent. Which reminds me to say, part of being able to listen is slowing down. We have so much to do. We've got an agenda. We're and I'll tell you a time just recently this summer where I failed. I walk every day. I walk 5-6 miles every day. And I was walking the neighborhood. I was on a schedule. I needed to get back to the house for an appointment. And I walked by a man sitting by the curb in his wheelchair. And we exchanged a quick greeting. And as I was passing him, I thought, you really ought to stop and talk with this guy. There's a reason he's sitting at the curb.
Mm.
And I kept going. And I lived to regret it. I still regret it this day. And when I make a mistake like that, like I didn't slow down, if I had taken 2 minutes,
Mm.
that would not have put me behind schedule, and it could have had a profound impact on him above and beyond the greeting.
I mean, can you
So,
imagine, like, say, for instance, just to take I just want to challenge people who are listening. I mean, we can tell, right? We have discernment when someone's not doing well.
yeah,
So, what would it take? Like, say you're in the store, say you're in line or something, and you just
yep,
pick up that the person next to you is not doing well. Just think, what if you just turn around and look them in the face? Now I feel like I'm going to cry and say, are you okay? Is there any way I can help if you're not? I mean, can you imagine?
oh, yeah, totally unexpected. And yeah, it's such an impact. Yeah. So we can make a huge impact on the joy in others' lives by slowing down and connecting on purpose. And it's because the tendency is to stay in whatever flow you're in.
Yeah.
It takes an awareness and a decision. I decided to keep walking. I
Oh.
could have decided to stop
Mm.
and receive the joy of that interaction.
Yeah.
So things like that, ever since then, it was July 4th. I remember the
Oh my
date.
goodness.
Yep. And since then, I have not missed an opportunity because I was so sorry I screwed that up.
Mm.
So I have given myself a chill pill. I have gotten out of gear and taken the time in other situations because I know what it does for me when someone does that
Yeah.
for me. And I want to be that gift to others.
Wow. Okay, so I'm just trying to follow because I tend to be very
Go
whatever.
ahead.
So you have the listening and then the putting the other person first, right? I'm
Mhm.
gonna elevate them. And what were my other principles now?
Really try to understand.
Mm-mm. Seek to understand.
Listen with the intent of understanding. And um, you will be amazed at what comes out of the other person. I I was recording a podcast yesterday, and the if I can say it this way, because
Yeah,
I already said I talk to the Lord all the time. I
yeah,
felt like He prompted me to share a story. It was a quick story about a devastating thing that happened to me. And because I shared it, the host said, "Wow, I'm really sorry that happened to you. I had a similar experience." And he shared what had happened to him with tears in his eyes.
Mm,
And I realized in that moment that the reason I was prompted to share that was so that he would have the freedom to speak about this painful thing. And I then was able to listen and empathize. And even it's that gift of listening that brings meaning to the phrase, I'm sorry for your loss.
mm.
That phrase alone can be heard as just, oh, that's what people say when whatever. But combined with the listening, he felt that I truly was sorry for his loss. And we connected at the level of understanding each other's pain. Does that make sense?
It actually makes a lot of sense. And I think, first of all, we are all too busy. We're all way too busy. And I wonder if half the things on our schedule add any value to anything, really.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you look at your schedule and say, so which of these things are like really important? Like really add something, like if I didn't do them, what would happen? Would the whole world fall apart or not? So just slowing down and, once again, you're talking, I'm thinking about Jesus, right? At the raising of Lazarus, there are certain things in the Bible that I'm just like, that just make you stop
Yeah.
because they told me your friend Lazarus is dying. You need to move it. Basically, you need to get there or he's going to be dead. Jesus remains where he is a couple more days. So when he gets there, I mean, he knows the final result. Lazarus is going to be raised from the dead. But all the pain, right,
Mm-hmm.
of Lazarus's sisters, and it says Jesus wept.
Right.
And it always struck me like, why is he weeping? He knows he's going to be raised. And I
Mm.
think because he was connecting with the sisters in the moment,
With
I'm sorry for your
the pain
loss.
of the loss. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And everything's just become so disconnected, everything we do. And so I love your whole story about, hey, listen, maybe we just need to connect. Maybe we just need to be quiet
Mm-hmm.
and seek to understand the other person, and miracles of restoration could happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I call listening the most profound gift we can give.
Mm, think about that. How about giving that to your family? Okay, for Christmas.
It all it costs is a little humility, attention to detail, because you have
Yeah,
to purpose to be quiet and focus on the other person. You might need to come up with a starter question, something you can ask.
yeah.
Um, I got a lot of practice. My mom just went home to Jesus in
Mm,
April after 96 and a half years. And the last 10 years of her life, her short term memory was leaving, her long term memory was well intact. And in order to keep her from fretting, she would fret about just about anything. I would ask her to tell me stories from her childhood.
mm.
And I learned so much about the way she thinks, the way what it was like for her to be a little girl, the things that she valued. I learned I didn't even know this. I learned she wrote a song that the big bands in Atlantic City picked up and played on stage one year. That's not written down anywhere. I never would have known that if I hadn't taken the time and asked that question.
Yeah, but you know what? Now you're giving advice to people because you're not alone with this situation, right? A lot of people have parents like this.
Yeah.
And I remember at first with my mom had dementia. She also passed this year.
I'm
And at
sorry.
first I'm frustrated because I'm thinking, I just told you that. And then I thought to myself, I'm not sure I did quite what you did, which would have been, the best choice. But I just thought, why am I fighting with this?
Mm.
Why don't I just be where she is? She's living 20 years ago. So I'll
Yeah.
just be there.
Yeah. That works
Wow.
too.
Yeah.
It does.
It gives them joy.
Right?
I'm just like, what difference does it make what happened in the last 20 years? We'll just be where we were and we'll just enjoy that. And
Yes.
so, is there
It's
anything else like you want to share? Any stories or anything else you'd like to share with our listeners today? Anything else you feel like God is prompting you to share?
Well, I will share. I have not mastered the courage thing. It's still is. I'm a work in progress, and that's okay. So I'm not striving for perfection when it comes to courage. Just again, recently there's a Bible story about courage in Judges 6. It's the story of Gideon. So I've been reading that story to see Gideon's interactions with God and how all of that worked to everyone's benefit. So I would just encourage whoever's listening to take small steps um, towards becoming the person that you want to be. Just take a small step each day. Give yourself grace when you fail, because, as I said, for all my best intentions, I was stuck in the I'm in a hurry mode and missed an opportunity. Um, but I'm still learning how to apply courage to everyday conversations, to things at work, to dealing with conflict, to standing up and speaking up for what I believe is right versus cowering in the corner when speaking up could make a difference for someone.
Hmm.
It it's a fine line to stand up and speak up versus try to impose. And that's where I need courage, because my little fraidy cat would go, "Look, I'm just not going to say anything. That way I don't rock the boat and nobody gets upset." But then that voice inside of me says, this is important. And if you speak up, there are others who aren't as courageous who will also speak up, and everyone can get to a better place.
I think that's also a good point. I think there's a difference between peacemaking and peacekeeping.
Well said.
And, I'm a person that, I grew up in a family with a lot of conflict. So it's taken me a long time to learn that because I was always a peacekeeper.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand it. So I'm just like, can everyone just stop?
Hmm.
But
Yep.
that isn't lasting. The peacemaking is what you said, where
Hmm.
we stand up and we speak, right?
Yep.
Yes, I'm listening because that's what you emphasized, right? But
Right.
I'm also speaking, you know, what needs to be said, what I believe,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And it's specifically if someone's, on behalf of someone else, whatever it is. So I think that's really good what you said.
Yeah. I think especially of parents with children. And as a parent, you can see someone going down a bad road by the
Mm.
choices they're making. And it's a fine line between forbidding to do that,
Yeah,
reasoning with, and or simply having a dialogue to hear their thought process, which might be flawed, but listen
yeah,
and make sure they understand consequences of different actions. It,
yeah,
so have that dialogue whilst holding loosely to the decision that they make. Because if you rob them of making that decision, that will hurt your relationship. If
Mm,
you allow them to make the decision, but you have at least equipped them a little better for the consequences, then you're in a position to receive them if and when things go wrong and
mm,
help them mend and get through it. Where and doing it any other way closes that door. And again,
mm.
it comes back to the relationship is primary. Maintaining
That is,
relationship.
I don't know. See, it's so simple. It's so simple, but we miss it.
Mhm.
It's like we miss the forest for the trees. Bigger is better, louder is better, like, noisier is better. When really, if we would just say, it's all about the relationships, like you said, it's
Mhm.
all about the person that's like in front of me. So whether we're talking about church, we're talking about family, we're talking about our profession, whether you're in sales or something else.
Yeah.
Does it really matter what you're in?
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Deb. What a blessing. What a perfect timing that you should come on during the holiday season to discuss this, because I think this is going to benefit a lot of people that say, wow, this is simple.
Excellent. Thank you, Sherry. Thanks for inviting me.
Can you pray now for our listeners? And, as you were talking about parents, I'm just going to ask that you would specifically pray for them because maybe some of them have kids that are living lifestyles that are so painful to them that they can't even feel like they can listen to their kid's story in order to understand.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So, Lord, we come before you with joy and gladness for this opportunity to share, to connect heart to heart, and to connect with people who aren't here now but will be in the future. Lord, I ask that you help each one of us tap into your divine wisdom as it pertains to every one of our relationships. I ask that you especially help parents have wisdom to interact with their children in the ways that are going to be most beneficial to each child. I also ask that you give wisdom to children who are taking care of elderly parents. So many of us are in that place, that stage of life where we're the sandwich generation. We have parents and children that we're taking care of. So I ask for wisdom for just how to navigate the difficulties of aging and the the um, the loss of independence for parents, and how we can come alongside them to continue to express love even through this change in their lives. And Lord, I ask also that you would shower your peace, especially at this time of year. Um, I'm very aware, Lord, that a lot of people have heartache associated with the holidays. So I ask that you would be near each of us to comfort us, to let us know your love, to tangibly feel your presence, that you are truly real. Give each one of us a new experience of who you really are, not who some man says that you are. I pray all of this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Well, thank you so much, Deb. I just
Thank
appreciate
you,
you coming
Sherry.
on today. And all you guys that have been listening, I hope this blessed you. And if you have any questions or would like to connect with Deb in any way, just reach out to us at the Grace Chronicles and we will connect you. And we'll see you in a couple weeks.